All right, now we're moving into actually modifying the pattern, right? So right now our pattern is just kind of pretty two-dimensional. It's just the same size circle subdivided across the panel, and all is well and good. What we want to do is define a sort of level of differentiation for the size or radius of each of these circles. Okay, we'll make it a little more intriguing. So to do that, we essentially have to modify a list of radii, 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 whatever, radiuses. I've never actually had to pronounce. Well, I mean, I've pronounced it a couple of times, but I've never actually looked into. Is it radii or is it radii? I don't know. I know many things, but everyone has gaps in their knowledge. So what we've got here is a list of. Well, oh no, sorry. Yeah, it's basically a single list of a radius that we've defined. So essentially, jumping all the way back to the beginning, we have 2.5 that gets divided by 12 to bring it back down to inches. And the value is 0.208333. So with that, we can essentially begin to override that list and create a list of our own. It's important to know that while right now we sort of mapped the numerical value to something that was static and standard across the entire board, we now have to map the value to whatever's the largest number. Okay, so there are two components here that you need to learn. But let's first override the list of radii. Let's override the list and create manual ones, and then we'll go back and make it parametric. Harrison, you look really confused.
No,
All right. So essentially, I can do this. This is like the super simple version is I drop a panel in, and I have to make it turn it off of multi-line data. Do I have to turn it off? I forget. No, I don't think I do. Anyway, double click inside, and we're going to create a list of radius values. So our maximum was 2.5. And we're doing this in inches, and we'll just run it through the divider. So 2.5. And we'll go kind of a range of different things below that. So 2.5, we'll do a 1.5, do a 2, maybe even like a 0.75, 1.75, and that, that should be fine for now. So when you click out, you have a list of radius values. If we plug this in and override that in the list of one radius that we plugged in, those will get divided instead. So before we have it actually modify, let me just kind of do this real fast. Well, no, it doesn't matter. We can just plug it in and let it run. So let's plug it in to the A. Oh, wait. Oh, we have to turn it off of multi-line. Aha, there we go. Yeah, sorry. So it gives you an error. I got this backwards. I always flip-flop on this and forget which one's what. So anyway, if you right-click it, you'll see this thing called multi-line data. It's a toggle. So you can toggle multi-line data off, and it reads it as single-line data, which basically means it turns it into an index value. Right? So it goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, 4 as a list. Make sense? Okay, so it changed our pattern, and if you follow it through to our surface difference and now look at your pattern, you'll see something like this. The first circle is 2.5 inches. The second circle is 1.5. The next one is 2. The next one is 0.75, and then the last one here in order is 1.75. But then 1.75 repeats throughout the entire list. So that is a flattened list that's getting fed in. And I'll show you what happens. Well, let me see something real fast. Yeah. All right. So if you grafted it into groups, actually, will that work? No, that won't work. Never mind. Let's not worry about that. So basically, that's a singular list, okay? And the list has 5 values, and the last one just repeats. So if you want a pattern to repeat throughout the entire length of your system, you have to basically measure how many times it needs to repeat and then tell it to repeat that many times. So it looks like this. You go under set, and this is where you're going to deal with a lot of this kind of like repeating and random stuff, randomization, reordering, restructuring, removing. All of that lives in here. So under set and under sequence, we're going to do this one that's called repeat data. Now, repeat data is going to ask for 2 things. It'll ask for the data as a list, and then it'll ask for the length of the pattern as a numerical input. Okay, so clearly, I'm going to pull this off to the side a little. Clearly, the data it's going to repeat is this, right? It's a pattern. And then the length of the list is something that we can measure parametrically, because I don't know if I want this many subdivisions in the future, but if I change it, I want this to automatically update. So I can do that by going to set and list, and this node right here called list length. List length, it basically just measures the length of a list, and it tells you how many index items are in it. But the key here is to figure out, well, which list do I want to measure? Because obviously, if I plug in the panel, my list length is 5. So we want to kind of go back to the circles that we're trying to create, follow that backwards, and say, well, what's determining where the circles go? And that would be the C center points. And notice how the center points have 168 values being plugged in. And so if you go back to the points as a list, you can measure the points that the circles are being applied to and plug that into list length. Now list length gets plugged into L, and here I'm just going to drop a panel on so you can see it. You see that that whole list is getting repeated 168 times. So going back to here then, I'm going to plug this into A. And there you go. Something slightly more dynamic than you're used to. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So just before I close out on this particular video, I just want to say that we sort of did a few things. We have this little addition on here. We have, you know, this amalgamation of things happening. So every so often when I complete a sort of idea, I like to clean it up. And usually it just means spreading it out in the left and right direction. So I'm going to kind of just clean this up a little bit right now and see how I can reorganize it. So I'll pull this down. I notice that all of this information now is kind of crushed. So I'll slide it like that. It just helps to do this periodically. Here, oops. All right, something like that is a little cleaner. I'm not worried about this one. Okay, so I want to make sure that you're at this level before I proceed. What questions do you have? Okay, I'll be around to double check.